In downtown Tokyo, a depressed high school student named Mirai is sitting on top of a high-rise building after his middle school graduation ceremony. Lost and hopeless, he steps on the edge of the building and jumps to put an end to his pain and suffering. However, Mirai suddenly floats and is surprised to see Nas, an angel, carrying him to safety. Still determined to end it all, Mirai tells her to drop him, emphasizing how much he's suffered throughout the years, but Nas cuts him off. She tells him that she's known about his tragic childhood and that she was sent to make Mirai happy. Despite Nas's optimism, he continues his dreadful rants and focuses only on his misery. Ever the pure angel, Nas quickly flies Mirai on the roof of a building and offers to give him freedom or love. Confused, Mirai internally questions the nature of these gifts, but the angel hears his thoughts and shows him his selection. For freedom, she offers Mirai wings so he can fly anywhere in the world at the speed of light. For love, Nas offers a red arrow that can make anyone fall in love with the owner once they're shot by it. Thinking that this is all just a hallucination, Mirai tries outsmarting the angel and asks for both. Much to his surprise, Nas agrees and gives him her halos, surrounding his neck and arm. Mirai orders Nas to remove the halos, but she explains that they won't come off until the new god emerges and that there are other angels like her. Ignoring the boy's confusion, the angel urges him to try out his new powers. Without any options, he orders his wings to come out and nervously flies away into the sky. Fearful at first, Mirai covers his eyes before reaching a clear patch of sky, where he finally marvels at the beauty of the heavens. He flies on before perching on a radio tower, cherishing the freedom his wings had given him. While watching the cars below him, Mirai recalls his childhood with his friend Saki, thinking back to a picnic they had together. Euphoric, he flies away while still thinking about his childhood love. Upon reaching a Mayan temple, Mirai sits with Nas catching up to him. Sensing his joy, she tries convincing him to use his wings to steal money. Shocked, he questions Nas, wondering if she's really an angel or a devil. She laughs this off and explains that she's a special ranked angel. As for devils, they only exist in the hearts of people. Mirai quietly listens on until Nas reveals that his aunt and uncle were responsible for his family's death. Shocked by this revelation, he reflects on his past and thinks about his uncle's cruel treatment of him throughout his childhood. Nas then suggests using his red arrow on his aunt to find out the truth. Mirai agrees and flies to his uncle's apartment. When he arrives, Mirai greets his aunt before shooting his arrow towards her. Instantly falling for her nephew, Mirai's aunt tries forcing herself on him, causing him to push her away. He then asks his aunt for the truth about his family's death, which has her bursting into tears and revealing that it was his uncle's plan to end his family's life. Hearing the commotion, his uncle gets up from bed and checks on his wife, but Mirai's aunt charges at her husband, cursing him for wanting the money Mirai's father had inherited. Angered by this, he beats his wife and curses at her. Upon hearing the painful truth, Mirai screams at the two of them, telling them that they deserve to die for what they did. Pushing her husband away, the aunt rushes to the kitchen and takes a knife. His uncle steps back before his wife suddenly stabs herself in the neck, instantly ending her own life. Amidst the chaos, Nas explains to Mirai that the red arrow causes people to mindlessly follow the owner's orders. Seeing the floor fill with blood, Mirai's uncle orders him to call for help, but the angel stops Mirai and urges him to watch as an angel takes his aunt's soul to heaven, finally realizing his life's worth. He cries out and swears to live his life to the fullest from now on. After 3 days of staying in a hotel, Nas tries convincing Mirai to get out into the world again. However, he throws some change onto the floor, showing Nas that he's short on money before explaining that he only wants to live a life any person would want, one filled with ordinary happiness. With her crazed optimism in full swing, she suggests that he dispose of his uncle and his family using the red arrow again to claim his father's money back. But Mirai disgustedly rejects the idea. Nas maintains her cheerfulness amidst the morbid idea, and she suggests using a white arrow instead, which will guarantee a painless death. In her enthusiasm, she accidentally reveals that even God uses white arrows, surprising the teenager. Nas then tells him that there are 13 God candidates like him who are also accompanied by their own angels. From there, Mirai realizes that his life is completely about to change as he wonders what it takes to become the new God. Meanwhile, in a parking lot downtown, there is a God candidate who is messing around with some girls inside his limousine. His name is Tomer Rodriguez. However, another candidate called Metropoliman interrupts Rodriguez and shoots him with a white arrow, instantly killing him. The killer then takes his victim's halos, further adding to his power. Back in his hotel room, Mirai doubts himself, telling Nas that he has no chance of becoming the new god. A concerned Nas tells him that if someone else becomes the new god, he will lose all his powers. She then emphasizes the fact that he should be keeping himself happy. Recalling his mother's words, Mirai tells Nas that life is only about looking for greater happiness and that such a thing should be shared. She merrily agrees as he continues, informing her that even if he turns his uncle in, he still would have no interest in becoming god. Submitting to Mirai's wishes, Nas tries getting Mirai back to his uncle, but he stops her because he still has high school applications to answer. Later that night, Mirai watches in disgust as a news channel reports about Rodriguez and his multiple girlfriends. Noticing the angel hovering above the victim, he quickly calls Nas to watch with him. While the report blares on, Nas explains how the red arrow works, emphasizing that it can be used 14 times and that its effects last 33 days. The next morning, after submitting his school application form, Mirai checks his phone and is shocked to find Rodriguez murdered the night before. As the weeks go by, Mirai puts his powers to good use. He shoots his uncle with the red arrow to turn himself in, allowing Mirai to rightfully claim his father's money. With his finances solved, he buys himself a condominium and heads out to shop for some clothes. Nas accompanies him and congratulates the boy on his successes, which includes passing the school entrance exam. She then asks him if he's found true happiness. Mirai reassures Nas, pointing out that Rodriguez's death is the only thing bothering him now. Despite the angel's persistent optimism, he remains silent as he walks along the streets of Tokyo. Upon reaching a nearby bank, Mirai and Nas are surprised to hear that a robbery is currently happening inside. From out of nowhere, Metropoliman bursts into the bank, proclaiming himself as the hero that will save the day. The police within the vicinity try stopping Metropoliman, but he shoots them with his red arrows, hypnotizing them into allowing him to deal with the armed robbers. The supposed superhero easily disposes of the robbers using his red and white arrows. Dazzled by Metropoliman's heroics, a news reporter quickly interviews him and he introduces himself as a hero of Tokyo. Mirai and Nas quietly listen on before Metropoliman issues a warning to all god candidates, challenging them to face him in a battle. Sensing this man's evil motives, Mirai leaves to keep Metropoliman from finding him, another god candidate. Once evening came, Mirai heads home and tells Nas to revoke his powers after hearing Metropoliman's threat. However, she explains that Mirai's wings and arrows are the only thing keeping him alive. This is when she reveals that removing them will instantly lead to his end. Stuck between a rock and a hard place, the teenager thinks to himself, pondering on how to handle his god candidate status now that Metropoliman's out to get all of them. Worrying for his safety, Nas tries convincing Mirai to stay inside to keep him safe. However, he decides to choose his own happiness and tells her that he's going to go to school tomorrow. The next morning, Mirai tells Nas to stay at home while he heads to class. The angel happily obliges and reminds Mirai to shoot Saki with his red arrow. Flustered, Mirai rejects the idea and bids Nas farewell as he heads to school for his first day. On the steps of the school's entrance, Mirai nervously walks inside when suddenly, he spots an angel hovering above him. He is afraid that this one could be Metropoliman's angel, and he could only hope that it wouldn't find him. However, Revel senses Mirai's thoughts and immediately flies towards him, taunting him for reacting to his angelic presence. Mirai then tries asking who Revel is assigned to as he reveals that his god candidate is none other than Saki herself. Dumbfounded, Mirai tries speaking with Saki, but she immediately shoots Mirai with a red arrow, hypnotizing him. With Mirai under her control, she orders him to meet with her in her apartment so they can discuss certain things. Without his free will, Mirai obliges and immediately flies to Saki's apartment. There, Saki and Revel interrogate Mirai, asking him what his powers are. Once Mirai reveals that he has both arrows and wings, Revel instantly covers Saki and questions if Mirai is Metropoliman. He immediately denies this, retorting that he would never do anything to hurt Saki. Now that Mirai's in the clear, Revel orders him to act as Saki's wings to protect her in case Metropoliman discovers her god candidate status. Still under the red arrow's power, he obliges as Revel teaches the two how to fly together. After being instructed to hold hands, Mirai blushes as he imagines himself dancing with Saki. Once their halos are linked together, the two then head to the balcony outside and fly into the sky. Seizing his opportunity, Mirai flies Saki higher, allowing her to revel in the beauty of the sights down below. Sensing her gloominess, Mirai tries asking how she is, but Saki avoids the conversation and merely tells him that she's fine. Not wanting to push further, he nods before heading back to the girl's apartment. After their test flight, Revel commends the two for their successful pairing before Saki's phone buzzes with news of Metropoliman, who had just apprehended a criminal. From there, Revel explains that Metropoliman's sole ambition is to eliminate all god candidates to ensure that he becomes the new god. Worrying about Saki, Mirai instantly runs towards the balcony, proclaiming that he'll end Metropoliman to save Saki from any harm. However, just as Mirai is about to fly to Metropoliman, Nas hovers down and orders Mirai to stop. Confused, Mirai pauses as Nas tells Mirai that Revel has been manipulating him through the red arrow Saki shot at him. Once Mirai calmed down, Nas convinces him that going after Metropoliman is a bad idea since he can easily be shot with a white arrow. Still concerned about his crush, Mirai tries arguing, but Saki tells him to stand down. Thanks to the red arrow, Mirai obeys Saki's orders and settles down. Revel sarcastically apologizes as Nas scolds him for being a trickster. But eventually, he suggests teaming up with Mirai and Nas to fight against Metropoliman. Mirai angrily rejects the idea, emphasizing that Revel nearly sent him to his death. Saki's angel retorts that the young god candidate could easily dispose of Saki once the red arrow's powers wore off. It's because of this Nas would accidentally divulge the fact that her god candidate has feelings for Saki, and because of that he would never hurt her. Embarrassed, Mirai tries defending himself, but his angel completely takes over and agrees to team up with Revel and Saki. Once the angels and the god candidates have come to terms, Revel then tells Mirai to live with Saki for the time being. The boy gladly agrees and the team calls it a night. The next day, Metropoliman easily apprehends car thieves as news reporters desperately try to interview him. Flying back to his home base, Metropoliman angrily throws his helmet to the floor and impatiently rants to his angel, Mesa, wondering where the other god candidates are. Reviewing some of the stories of his heroics, Metropoliman devises a new plan to lure the others to him. After 33 days, Saki ties Mirai to a chair and watches as her red arrow's effects fade. Much to their surprise, Mirai remains the same as he happily stares at her. Sensing his true feelings, Revel's guard goes down as he now trusts Mirai and Nas, as he's now free from the red arrow's power. He thanks Saki for the opportunity to be true to her about his feelings before proclaiming that they must end Metropoliman's reign of terror throughout the remaining god candidates. Suddenly, their phones buzz as news of a live stream from Metropoliman fills their news feeds. They then turn the TV on as they watch Metropoliman's announcement, inviting the god candidates to peacefully meet him at the stadium downtown. As it turns out, all of the god candidates are just there in Japan. Mirai suspects that Metropoliman's invitation is a trap, but despite this, he still decides to play his games. Mirai has certainly come a long way from the hopeless and miserable boy he started out as. He doesn't want to be a god, he just wants the simple happiness he's always yearned for. And to do that, he'll have to keep fighting for his life. He'll have to keep going on like he's always had, putting one foot forward at a time.